Michael Schaefer, Ross Johnson, Matt Schultz, and Landon Fry are all here this evening.
Free.
Perspective. I've been back and
I'm just gonna say it. I've been thinking it for 10 minutes. I don't want a podcast scared.
Oh yeah.
ashes. Now I've seen the road.
Pregnancy is a beautiful thing. Pregnancy is a gift.
Shit. Oh, there are stories to tell.
What kind of paint sticks to asteroids? Like, if you don't prime your wall.
Afraid some days, but the road will lead us to a better place.
We are called to emerge from that default setting of self-involvement.
When you see the road from every direction, it will give you eyes, give you hope, it'll give you perspective. I've been back and forth, and yeah, I had my crashes. Now I've seen the road, it goes every direction.
Ross, where's Landon and Matt tonight?
All right, so Landon is in England, I believe, trying to pretend like he is C.S. Lewis. I think Matt is in Peoria.
So I thought it's like some fun way to keep things, because my schedule is clear, from 8:15 to 9:45 every other Thursday. It's podcasting night. So that being the case, I thought it might be fun to do a little bit of an origin story, if you will, between Ross and I, since Ross and I are here. And when the opportunity comes up, doing one between me and Matt, me and Landon and Ross and Matt, everyone's sort of having their turn. Because I think in that sort of origin story, it gives a certain context to what motivates, what inspires, what makes the speech guys drink and think. So that's sort of where we are coming from here. Ross, where did we first meet?
Man, first meet, as in like we're introduced to one another, I have no idea. But
yeah, we never were actually introduced. Let's make that official.
Let's make it official.
Mike. I'm shaking my hands across the screen.
It's good to finally meet you, Mike. The earliest back that I can remember, there was some sort of focus event, probably at the Newman Center, and afterwards everybody went to Legends, I believe.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we're hanging out at Legends, and for some reason, who knows, maybe Providence itself, me and Mike ended up talking to one another, and in a masculine way, pretty much decided to go on a date. That's what I remember.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what I remember.
Yeah, I remember it was a focus talk given by Jeremy Rivera, I think was his name. Yeah. And yeah, it was Legends. I think there may be like 5 or 6 of us that went there. Now, what you forgot though, Ross, was a little bit more. It wasn't just we sort of started talking first time. We had sort of seen each other around. I was expecting you to say, I used to see you running around campus barefoot all of the time.
Well, that's a true statement. I did used to see that, but
that's sort of primed the pump. Yeah, that was a brief phase that I went through, running barefoot. Yeah, and we'd sort of like make eyes at each other, like we would acknowledge each other. And it was very often like the exact same spot. It's like kind of right behind Follinger, a little bit east of Follinger. Can you picture that spot?
East of Follinger, yeah. I mean, I can picture east of Follinger.
Behind it. But yeah, that was often. I mean, I can. It's just so crisp. I can see you sort of like nodding, making your eyes up. Oh man, it's funny.
But so we were
But yeah, that
acquaintances. Like if somebody would have said, "Who's that guy?" I would have
no,
said,
no, we weren't acquainted. We didn't even speak. I knew that you were Rob's younger
right.
brother.
That's what I mean. Like if somebody, I would have known you were like a Newman Center person. I wasn't like that's a complete stranger running barefoot.
We knew of each other.
Exactly.
Right. I think I remember at Legends that night, we talked a lot about dating, romance, adventure. And we've been talking about those things ever since.
It's actually the only thing that we talk about.
Our first platonic date was the Illini Inn,
Absolutely.
obviously.
Yep, I remember
which
that.
I ran by that during the Champaign Half Marathon a month and a half ago. Man, that place got yuppie.
Yeah.
Too many Chicago kids going there, I guess.
I know that they cleaned it up a lot since our days.
We used to have to like literally pick your leg up in order to get across the floor. Like not just like step up, you had to literally like get your hand under your hamstring and
So,
walk across the floor.
I know we've matured a lot, so we probably wouldn't literally, like if we were back in college, some of the things, like we probably wouldn't do the exact same things again. But I will admit, just going to the Illini Inn, drinking a couple PBRs, and seeing how many people we could get to sing God Bless the USA, I might do that again.
We would, definitely.
That's one thing I would, yeah.
I mean, there wasn't anything else we did that was questionable. We weren't dancing on the bar with our shirts off. We are probably engaging more atheists in conversation than we would now.
Yeah. Is that good or bad, though? I don't know. So we go to the Illini Inn. That was definitely our first. Was it just the two of us, though? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it definitely was. Definitely. And then everyone started going. Then it became a spot for Newman nights.
Thursday nights, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And one thing that's like striking to me, I know I've said this just in general conversation before, but it is the same with Landon too, but with respect to graduate school. It's like, it's so crazy. We were not friends until my last semester of college. I remember it was January of 2011 of when Jeremy had his talk. So yeah, just a few short months. Man, that's wild.
That is actually kind of interesting because so that was the spring of your senior year, right?
Yeah. I mean, do you have any friends from college that you made that late in the game?
You're probably the closest, though. Honestly, I didn't start hanging. Like, interestingly enough, I mean, obviously Landon I knew from freshman year on, but like Dan.
Well, that's a fun story of how you guys knew each other, but we'll save that
for another short.
The speech guy short.
Like Danny, I did not meet until we were that same about time. We were just juniors, so like we had an extra year together. Yeah, so I don't know. So Ross Life that spring of 2011, like that's the same time I started hanging out with Anna and Patty and Julie, like my now wife. So
Yep.
yeah, so you and my wife, I guess I'll put you.
Man, I mean, I know I wasn't a best man at your wedding. I mean, I was a mere groomsman. But relative to me and Julie, relative to the amount of time we knew you, we really climbed the ranks. Versus like Rob, he knew you for like 25 years and he got best man. Like, gosh, that's not a real good rate of return.
That is, I mean, funny, but I guess it's something I never thought about. Like, not that it was a pivot point, because like I don't know if I like changed direction, so that's not the right word, but like year that would impact my life moving forward. I guess yeah, I will. I've never thought about that before, but I would put spring of 2011 very high on the list. In a
wow.
I guess 4-month period, I met or maybe not met, but started spending time with 2 people that were groomsmen in my wedding and my wife. in a 4-month period. That's maybe the most packed full period, 4 months of Ross's life.
Wow.
Outside of my first 4 months where I met
Wait,
both my parents.
Who is the other groom?
Huh?
Other groomsman. Who is the other groomsman in that
Danny.
period? Oh,
So I met Mike and Danny.
Danny. I don't even remember him being a groomsman.
He was. So what was Jeremy? So do you remember I remember when you said that. I would not have said that, but when you said that, I was like, yeah, that sounds familiar.
It was something having to do with dating. I feel like
that was a fun semester. We were at the Illini most Thursday nights.
Yeah, we were. That was my fat semester.
Yeah.
that November through March 2010, 2011, that was a challenging time for my body acceptance. Wow. I think I weighed myself once and it was a big number. And I swore never again. I think one thing that sort of struck me and sort of like thinking about this period is thinking about like what got us both in that same place, being like that sort of Newman community, that Catholic community, because that's obviously sort of like the fertile ground for all that stuff. Because if not, then you would just been another random guy that I was running past. And so, Ross is 1 year younger than me. I know it might seem like I'm 30 years older than him with all the wisdom that spews out of me. But I lived at Newman Hall at U of I because that is where my sister lived, Lauren. And I did many things that my older siblings did, like go to U of I or study agriculture or run or ride bicycles. And the whole Catholic community there in the Diocese of Peoria was like, sort of like being hit over the head with a 2x4, but in a generally good way. Because when I got there, I still remember my first mass that I went to there. It was 5 p.m. Saturday mass of move-in day. And I remember I sat sort of in the back. I remember it was a sunny day. And I remember Billy. Billy was sitting like catty corner to me. I just made out. We became acquaintances. But this whole like culture that was there of like kids going to daily mass with kids, being fellow college students, like going to daily mass and going to adoration and, going to these different talks and such. And I was actually just talking about this with someone recently in a different context. I think to put like the finest point on it possible, feeling like I was seen and that other people were seeing the same things in the broader context of life in the world was one of the things that like sort of struck me in those first couple of years. It sort of worked their way into my guts, in my soul. Obviously not everyone's going to experience that. But that was sort of the thing that got me into that general space. Ross, what was the thing that sort of got you into that general space? Because you did not live at
so
Newman.
I was an outsider. No. So interesting, you said, so I also went to U of I because my siblings did. And I also lived at...
Yeah, Ross is also the youngest.
Went to U of I pretty much...
One more point. That one thing I thought about recently, almost all of my friends are the youngest. All of my close friends. Yeah. Very few exceptions.
But I'll mingle on that. But also go to the U of I. I'm 18, go to the U of I pretty much because my siblings did. Which was a good choice for me at the time. Also lived at Neighbor House because my brother did. Neighbor House is an agriculture fraternity, for anybody who doesn't know. I was not involved in agriculture, so that's a fun little fact. But yeah, so kind of followed in my siblings, my brother's footsteps. My brother was still at neighbor house when I went in there. What attracted me to more the lifestyle, or not the lifestyle, but what you're describing. So my brother, I have a lot of respect for my older brother. He had kind of gotten involved in that space, I guess, while at U of I. So it's kind of an easy, like, follow him type thing. I actually think I gave a speech at his ordination party where I kind of talked about that. Like, it was very just kind of following my brother, and not in like a bad way. Like, not like I can't make up my own mind, but more like he was able to do something that was attractive enough that you'd want to follow. And so I feel like that's what I like initially got me into the space, was kind of following my brother. But I don't know, I think that's an important distinction, not in like a sheepish, like I can't make up my mind, but
Yeah.
different type of way. And then I think once I got into that space, or started getting into the space or seeing the space, I think what drew me in probably the most was, I guess I was just attracted to just a genuine life, I guess, at that time, right? Like, a lot of college is, I mean, there's the stereotype of the drunken frat guy, and like, stereotypes are right. They're not perfect, but they're based in something. So like, a lot of people kind of pursue that more like rebellious side of life when you're finally free. But I feel like that was the first time I saw, like, we're not kids anymore in the sense that we're like bound by what our parents tell us, but at the same time,
Right.
these people are like striving for good things and like high ideals. And I just found that, I think, I don't know if I could have like consciously come to this conclusion at the time, but I think looking back, I was just kind of attracted to that, like living a good, full life, you know, reading books, doing fun things, spending time with people, not taking advantage of people, like just that type of life, was pretty cool, I thought. So I think it kind of sucked me in. Yeah.
I think, me and a few of my other friends, well, yeah, one or two other friends in particular, most have talked like about that post Newman world, because, we're obviously describing this population. 600 people lived at Newman. Obviously not everyone who lives there is particularly active in their faith, if they're Catholic even. But then you obviously have people, like you, who don't live there, but who are active in the community. So you're talking about, 150-ish people who are pretty, well above the one standard deviation of the average religious performance of a college student. You have that 150 people or so. And just thinking about, like, where does everyone land, now that we are 10 to 11 years out from then, is just really interesting. And even like within my closest friend groups, from that space, and hearing how they articulate their faith and their interpretation of the world, just really fascinating. There's one, more like an acquaintance, who was in that space, and who had been like one of the like agnostic turned devout Catholics. And now, like I said, not someone I talked to a lot, but like 5 years ago, I talked to him last, and now he's an atheist again. And I know that there's other individuals from that community who, way above average, going to daily mass, and who are now atheists or apathetic or something. It's just, that's just fascinating what's going on inside each of those people. that informs and compels the movement, towards or away from Christ, to put a fine point on it.
Yeah, obviously not to like assume or judge or anything like what led those people to make the decisions that they made, because I actually don't know who you're talking about. But like I think I've heard, I mean, Bishop Barron has said this before, and I don't know where he got it because I don't think this is his like original thought, but like we don't believe things based on one thing. So it's not just like we like to think of ourselves, especially people, right, kind of under, I mean, our age or younger, maybe like, oh yeah, we like science and rational thought and logic and stuff. But like in reality, people believe things based on some like reasonable things, whether that's science or logic, but also like
Right.
who tells you it, who's around you, like peer pressure,
Yeah.
but not in like a pressure way, but just like what people around you believe. Like there's so many
Yeah.
different facets of like what cause us to think and believe the way that we do. Yeah, so I mean, I think that's probably why it's important, right? Like John Paul II, like JP2 talked about like the importance of like evangelizing the culture, like changing that type of thing, because that's going to have an effect. Yeah, so that's an interesting thought, because I feel like, I don't know, I guess I don't think I knew as many Newman people as you, simply because I didn't live there. So I think the people that I got to know were the ones that were more involved. So probably the people that are still maybe practicing, at least, the faith.
There's a like metaphor that there's kind of like two like metaphors sort of like in my brain over the past like year or so. I'll do the more like benign one first. It goes something like this: the church begins and ends with you. And here's sort of why, like, I think there's obviously like a certain like social weight to religious activity that has certain like power and value and utility. But at the same time, it's also not like it's vitamin A. You just give a dose of religion to all of humanity, and it helps everyone. Like it's either 1% benefit or 30% benefit or no effect or whatever. It just has to be internalized, and it's just such a like contextual and nuanced and rich and textured way. And yeah, don't podcast scared, but I think like a really useful metaphor is like guns. In the right hand, a gun is a very powerful and useful thing. And in the wrong hand, it is the absolute worst thing in the world.
Don't stop there. I want to hear just a little bit more, like, make it an easier to understand metaphor. Make it more obvious.
Yeah, okay. Let me just sit in my quietness for a minute. It's like what. So I'm bouncing back and forth between those two metaphors, the gun metaphor and sort of like social utility metaphor. Well, let me sort of like settle on the gun metaphors. I think there's more like interesting or takeaways with that. It's like what do you do with that? I wonder, people from across the whole spectrum of gun ownership and gun use would have to say about that particular metaphor, where it's like if we outlaw guns tomorrow, there's going to be a very clear outcome of that. Let's just say all guns for simplicity, right? There's going to be very clear consequences of that. Some we could anticipate, some we could not anticipate. Would society be better off? Obviously in certain ways we would have no school shootings, or virtually none. But you would also be losing this entire dimension of, particular outdoors lifestyle, right? With religion, I think, and Bishop Barron has commented on this before too, how he hates the song Imagine by John Lennon. And I hate this song too for the exact same reasons. It's like, okay, we're going to get rid of religion because all of these terrible things that it has legitimately caused. But then you lose out on this very rich dimension of the human experience. And so it's just like what do you do with that information? How does that inform one's interpretation of these different dimensions of life? And I'm not like trying to get at the point of, I don't want to go like too far with the gun metaphor. Oh, and this is why you should get rid of guns, or this is why we should keep all guns, or anything like that. I'm just presenting the two metaphors as like an interesting sort of like corollary between the two, because both things are like very powerful. In many cases, people sort of scoff at this, but like religion does have the power to give and take away life. I believe very strongly that, whether that's with respect to someone is just so depressed because there's no meaning of life, or because of someone's martyrdom because they choose to die for their faith, or because of the 1,000 different things in between. Like, religion does have this profound capacity to take you to the edges. It's not just this foofy little thing. For some people it is, obviously, but yeah, like I said, just more sort of like artistically exploring those two different ideas. And I honestly forget like my connectivity to Newmanites, based upon that metaphor, but hopefully still worthwhile.
I'll explore just a little bit more to see if we can get anything out of it, but to try to like connect it, like it reminds me a little bit, so like kind of like you said, guns can be good or bad, right? Like they're very powerful either way, and religion can be a similar thing. I feel like why maybe, and to kind of like connect it to what I had said about, we don't believe things because of just one thing. So like at Newman, I think we saw it lived very powerfully in the good way. So we saw people that like they were awesome. They were living life to the full. They were fun. They weren't, puritanical. They were smart. They were very joyful, contented life.
Yeah.
And that was a huge part of their life. And like that was very attractive. And I think that that's probably not the most common way that most people see it. So like once when they leave Newman. Yeah.
Right. I mean, if I had never gone to school there, I would have never seen that,
Like that's kind of a sad thing. It's true. I mean, I would have been in the same boat, but I think that's why like so many people are attracted to that, is like, hey, like I kind of believe this, I kind of think this way, and then I see people just doing it so well, like so complete, and not just like going to mass every day, but just like clearly impacting the way they deal with everything. So like Jeremy Rivera was giving a talk on dating. Like they were able to tell us like, based on our beliefs, like this is how you should date people. And even that made sense, and then you leave that community and it's like, if you aren't around those same people, it seems like it might be harder to accept some of the things.
Yeah, well, I mean, I get it's like it's a simultaneous rebuttal and agreement with what you're saying. It's like, yeah, it can be harder to believe those things once you leave that community. But like in my mind, once you leave that space, it's like if I do not operate in a way as if I'm still in that space with respect to like chastity, sobriety, excellence, especially chastity, just calling it for what it is. I think back on those times. It's like, well, was that a lie? were you just like doing it to make people like you? Or like were you just mindless during then? Yeah, there's like a certain like internal consistency that like needs to be there for me, and I think that's the best explanation, or at least one substantial explanation for why. I mean, it sounds like I'm trying to brag, but I'm trying to like make a point. Why? Well, all of us. Why we still operate like we are still there.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but I think I would also say it's harder to do it though when you're not there. Like, I don't know. And a lot of, maybe in some ways yes, in some ways no, but
There's, as President Obama has said about Syria, there are certain red lines that are relatively easy to not cross, I think. Obviously, not going to daily mass every day, but yeah, there's like red lines like, no, I'm absolutely not going to do this or do that.
yeah. I mean, I kind of have thought about that in a way, just like, it's almost like life is so difficult or can be so difficult that like we are lucky enough to have that experience to pretty much form us to go take on the difficult, if that makes sense. Like without Newman, there's absolutely no way I would have been living a Catholic life in the world today. You know what I mean? Like if they just threw me into the situation I'm in now, like, because it's harder, it's harder to take time to pray every day and go to mass when you have a full-time job and 3 kids. Like there's just no other, like, that's just a fact. So like if I hadn't had that foundational 4 years, and for me like 2 years really, like there's no way I'd be able to do it. So it's almost like, I feel like that kind of ties in well with what I was going to say earlier. Like it's interesting how many people say they wish they could go back to college, but no matter, and I'm sure not everyone says that, but I feel like no matter what type of life they lived in college, college seems attractive to them. So like the guys that were, and I don't mean to like speak down on people, but to paint pictures and to make a stereotype. The people that are out at cams getting drunk and drinking, like even at age 35, kind of wish they were still doing that. And then the people that were at the Newman Center going to daily mass and reading books, blah, 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 like part of us kind of wishes we were still doing that. So it's just interesting, like that small, I mean, average length of life, we'll say 80 years to make math easier, even though it's probably more than that now. Like you got 4 years of that. It's like a very small slice of your life. And that's what you want, even though that's not really like real life. That's not childhood. That's not adulthood. Like, is that bad? Like, should we be doing more of that? Or I don't know. Just that's an interesting thought to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I understand your point. I don't think that's bad. I think it's just, it is what it is. I think something that's sort of relevant to some of the things that you said, I feel like you can agree or disagree. I give you permission. As the youngest, I feel like I've spent so much of my life watching other people. I mean, that's just, I mean, in many ways, it just makes me a very reflective person, because that's what I spent a lot of my childhood doing, is watching other people and wondering like why they do things the way they do, whether it's my parents or older siblings or the family and friends that were around them. It's just like the default condition that is what you will do if you are in that space all the time.
All right, so clearly college important in our lives, blah blah blah. But I don't know. So to continue with our origin story, just to play with it a little bit, not our origin, but our continuation story, I guess. Like I have some college friends that I was pretty close with in college. I don't talk to as much anymore. So to try to think through like why we remained close friends, I guess. So you became the campus minister at Bradley, right? And I was a senior. And you drove
Correct.
back pretty often to hang out at Lincoln Green or whatever it was, right?
Yeah, every Mondays were off for us in ministry. And it was probably a solid 2 times per month I headed back out east.
So you kept coming back
Yep.
to Champaign. We did some Illinians probably.
Yeah, that sounds familiar now that we're
I remember going to Lincoln. Well, no, because that would have been
sounds
whatever.
right.
Well, you would come back and we'd hang out some. We'll put it that way. And then obviously I go to Bradley for PT school right as you're leaving Bradley, but you were there. You were still there for the summer, I believe, right? Is that what it was? Okay. Man, and that's where Matt comes into the story. Well, at least my story. He'd been in Mike's for 9 months by now. Oh man. So we should save those specific stories for his that maybe. We don't want to get too much into it. But and then
Yeah.
try to think of where you went after that. You just went right back to Champaign?
Yeah, I went full time back to Champaign. Another 3 years.
And then we shouldn't maybe we shouldn't go too much into it. I feel like Stillwater's where things really started brewing.
Right. Yep. We were like a crock pot. Really took time to
We
heat
were on
things
low
up.
heat. Yeah. That's funny. What are your top 3 memories from our friendship? Nah, it's too much. Top 2 memories.
Driving you into a guardrail. And number 2, I mean, probably our first camping trip post graduate school in February 2016, which really helped spark this stage 3, episode 3, where you didn't like my burnt spaghettio dinner.
I would probably not say the guardrail incident because I don't remember it. So therefore, it cannot be a top memory. Though, to just tie everything together, when I met Julie, I had a bright red eye. She still says that, talks about that.
Oh, yeah.
All the blood vessels had burst in my eyes, so instead of white, it was just red.
Yeah, just now, so we don't just keep teasing the audience here. Yeah, we are doing the good old-fashioned activity of car sledding, whereby you have one driver pull a multitude of persons behind on a rope on plastic toboggans. And I was doing the driving of Ross's classic Ford Ranger, and coming across a bridge, him and 3 other friends, all on separate sleds, but on the same rope. I was going a measly 25 miles per hour, and Ross foolishly did not let go of the rope before he hit the guardrail. He was just so committed to sledding hard. Well, he sledded hard. Yeah, he hit the guardrail right on the square of his head, going 25 miles an hour. And
I do recall later my mom having a conversation with me about stopping doing dangerous things.
Yeah, I believe Vince Kenny, the failed member of the last episode, was one member. And,
I think Chris took me to the hospital. Chris Komorowski. Now father Chris Komorowski, I believe.
That's right. Yeah. Because me and Vince and Danny kept sledding.
I feel like top 2 memories, I'm going to collectively say Illini, because I don't have I have several memories of being there, obviously, but I'll just put it as a collective memory.
Can I put a fine point on that particular memory? Because
Go
I
ahead.
don't feel like we did it justice earlier. So when at the Illini Inn, they had a good old-fashioned digital jukebox. I guess not old-fashioned, but new one. And I'd go around like collecting quarters from people. And we'd play some fun, like little Kenny Chesney, a little Bruce Springsteen, little Tom Petty. And but we'd always finish with what was his name? Lee Greenwood, I think is his cover of it. God Bless the USA. We obviously get our group of about 5, 6, 70 people there into our little huddle. And, it was expected that you sort of like moved to the song, cleaning your glasses at the precise point. Man, a lot of really special
I remember
times.
giving a lot of thought to the first, I remember trying in my mind to set it up like a baseball lineup. So, picking the music to put the people in the mood to sing with us for that song. So, the first song is the leadoff hitter. So, it's you just got to get on base. So, you need something that people like. And then, the second batter, your job's to advance the leadoff hitter. So, you got to get him to second base and get into scoring position. And then, so we needed something just to kind of keep them interested. And then at that point, they're a beer in, they're interested. Then you can throw the good stuff at them. I remember putting a lot of thought into the music lineup. I would put second memory. You mentioned. Oh, sorry. Can I give my second memory?
Breaking into Anna and Patty's apartment.
That's definitely
climbing
memory.
up a rope or something.
I got to show off my climbing skill.
Ross's, I've seen it. He's very good at climbing up buildings.
Pretty much a modern day Spider-Man. I feel like you already said our first camping trip, which I'd put on pretty high on the list, but just to give a second memory, well, I'll just say Stillwater was a good memory. That was a nice advancement of the friendship. We lived together post-college, and that was a nice, not quite full grown-ups with full-time jobs, but we're also out of college, so a nice, transition period.
Again, my last semester of graduate school, and where I met Landon for the first time. The twilight. So the moral of the story is always hang in there until the last semester. Don't go get that early job. You might not be able to make a podcast later on. So Ross, what do we have going on next episode?
So next episode, we're going to go back into the sci-fi series, I believe, and listen to a little bit of 2001, The Space Odyssey. Don't get confused. It was not made in 2001. But to talk a little bit more about sci-fi, artificial intelligence, maybe even the meaning of being human. I'm not sure where Landon's going to take us on this trip.
Well, he's not going to be there still.
So he'll take us nowhere. I'm not sure where we will end up. Maybe like a sci-fi Landon will lead us.
Right. Yeah. Well, an AI Landon. Yeah, that's the plan. So bonus Speech Guys content here, because we'll get this one posted probably mid next week, and get the other one posted maybe by next Sunday. So
I'm gonna give a quick shout out because last night I got the first ever conversation with someone who was a Speech Guys listener that I did not tell directly to listen to an episode. So Rachel, thanks for listening.